Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Jill Isenstadt, IBCLC, and I am a lactation consultant who spends her days helping parents with breastfeeding. You can find out more about me and the services I provide by going to aabreastfeeding.com. Today, we are going to continue our conversation on things that moms worry about when it comes to breastfeeding. So far, we have covered worries about subjects like not making enough milk. Moms are worried about other things like nursing in public, breastfeeding while taking some medications. Moms worry if it's going to hurt. You worry if you're going to feel tied down as a breastfeeding mother. And moms worry if your partner will bond with your baby if you are the one always feeding them. Check back to previous episodes where we've discussed all of the above. Now, all of these are legitimate worries for which I hope I have put aside your fears and replaced them with action steps you can take to avoid getting bogged down with worry. In our show today, I'm going to talk about a very, very common worry moms have. This particular worry does not usually kick in until after you've had your baby and are beginning to think about one of the next transitions in a working, breastfeeding, pumping mom's life. It usually happens at some point in your pumping, storing, preparedness life. A pump part gets lost or it breaks, and all of a sudden you realize, CRAP. What if this happens when you're at work? And you start to get paralyzed with fear. You might have an instance where your office is an hour away from home and you realized you forgot your pump. Or perhaps you have the pump, but the flanges are sitting on the counter where you last put them to dry. I have had moms call me up in a panic about these issues, or when a pump is all of a sudden not working and they're at work. I tell you, electric breast pumps are just like any other appliance or a piece of technology equipment. Guess what? They break from time to time, and usually without warning. Moms usually don't think about this until it happens to them. Not you, because you are listening to this show and are going to be prepared for this possibility. This show is for everyone who needs a plan B. Hand expression is the way to go. Now, hand expression is one way to remove the milk from the breast. It's a great skill for all mothers to learn, as honestly, you never know when you will need to have this information. I'm going to mention and elaborate on some of the most common reasons or circumstances you might find yourself in desperate need of having a plan B. No matter what the circumstances you find yourself in, you really need to be self-reliant and not fully dependent on electric pumps. Let's talk about some circumstances you might find yourself in that you will be glad you learned about hand expression. The first one that comes to mind is literally the first 24 hours after giving birth. It's really hard to remove the milk on that very first day using an electric pump. The volume of colostrum is typically just a spoonful or two, and that amount is quite normal. But what happens is this precious fluid tends to get lost in the pump parts. Hand expression proves to be much more efficient and able to capture the milk that you're removing. What about if the reliable pump you have been using is no longer reliable? Perhaps the battery has died unexpectedly, or the motor just doesn't work and you have no idea why. You have no power to use and your boobs are bursting at the seams. Perhaps you cannot get your hands on a reliable pump, like you left it at home by accident. What if you're traveling and it got broken in the process of being juggled around, or you had it as your baggage and it got lost? For some moms, what if you have just made the long drive home from the hospital where your baby is in the NICU? You spent most of the day there, you've been pumping there, And soon after coming home, just when you're getting ready to do that last pumping before you go to sleep, you realize, you forgot your pump in the hospital. What about if one or more of the parts of the pump has broken? Maybe it's cracked, it has a hole in it, and you cannot get a replacement part in time for your next pumping. What if the manual pump you've been using does not work anymore, or a part broke for that, or you also forgot to take it with you? Another big one, you find yourself in a natural disaster where you just cannot use a pump. Given what has gone on in the world today with hurricanes, tornadoes, fires, mudslides, severe snowstorms, these are situations that frankly are no longer far and few between. Statistically speaking, there's a fair percentage of my listening audience who will find themselves in a natural disaster where this skill will be very useful. Natural disaster or broken parts aside, perhaps for you, all the pumps you've tried so far, well, they're hurting your breast or they're hurting your nipple, maybe even causing some tissue damage. Until you can get help with figuring out what is going on, you do not have to worry about your supply. You have the ability to remove the milk on a regular basis with hand expression. What if you come to a point where you just find yourself not letting down to any of the pumps? This happens to a small percentage of moms. Sometimes it's just a temporary thing. And guess what will help? Hand expression. Now, some moms find themselves in a position from time to time where your day is just so crazy, and between the walk to the area that you pump at work and pumping and cleaning and getting back to your desk, maybe you just can't afford the 25 minutes it takes you to get the job done. But you can steal away 10 minutes to not necessarily pump, but to hand express. It's a great skill to have in those circumstances. As you can see, there are many different times that you might find yourself in a place where you just cannot use your electric pump that you have become quite reliant on. So what are some of the benefits of learning hand expression in addition to what we've talked about? You are empowered to be able to remove the milk no matter what the circumstances you find yourself in. If your baby is not breastfeeding well, particularly in the early days, studies show that hand expressing after pumping can help increase your output. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more afterwards and put a link in the resource section in the show notes about that. Compromised production is 3 times more common in mothers of preterm babies versus term babies. For this reason, I frequently counsel moms who give birth early to begin hand expressing on the very first day. Also, you can quietly remove the milk anytime and anywhere, and you can easily do this quite discreetly. You do not have to sit with engorged breasts waiting until you can get to your electric pump. Over the years, I've had various circumstances where I have had my fair share of moms who I have given instructions on hand expressing over the phone. I've kind of walked them through it while they're at work and without their pump or with a broken pump. I've also counseled moms who have come down with engorgement or mastitis because they spent too much time away from their baby or the pump. They felt their breasts becoming harder and harder as they planned on getting home much sooner. They just so are attached to their pump as the only way to remove the milk, they didn't even consider hand expression. Once this happens just once, moms learn they can always use hand expression to help themselves. The last huge benefit of hand expression is I believe that knowing you can remove the milk all by yourself helps build confidence in yourself as a breastfeeding mom. What about some tips for hand expression? I encourage you to experiment yourself on your own. I also will have a link to a great video on hand expression in the show notes. You can reach this by going to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast click on episode 329 and the information will be right there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have several videos, links to videos in there. While learning hand expression, you may do best if you can do this in privacy without eyes watching over you. During the learning phase and you're experimenting, mothers seem to do best when they take the time to gently massage their breast before expressing milk. And a sample of that is also in one of the videos. During the learning phase, mothers seem to do best when their hands are warm to the touch. Do not be too attached to the volume expressed, particularly the first few times you try this. It takes a few practice sessions until you get a rhythm going, until you get the right hand and finger placement. It just takes a little bit to figure out. It'll be different for each mom. You will get it though. Dr. Jane Morton, who's professor of pediatrics at Stanford Pediatrics, she wrote an article called Mothers Who Use Hands-On Technique See Increase in Milk Production. In her research, she found that milk production in pump-dependent mothers of preterm babies depended on the frequency of hand expression in the first 3 days after delivery. This is such important information that I really want to get out there. The incidence of premature births are on the rise, and babies who are born early are just that much more vulnerable and really need their mom's milk. So I'm going to put a link to the article in the show notes. Mothers found consistent increase in production when they did not rely on pump alone. In the videos that you're going to see the links for in the show notes, you will learn how hand expression can be started right after giving birth. Learning hand expression will also come in handy as it can help relieve engorgement, soften breasts, and make it easier for milk to flow if you're having a problem with letdown. Hand expression will also be helpful to relieve clogged ducts. So here are some things you can find in the several videos. One of them shows that after the first few days and when you have fuller breasts, hand expression can really help to relieve engorgement, soften your breasts, and make it easier to flow if you're having a problem letting down. Removing the milk after your baby is done breastfeeding can help you collect additional milk. It helps to express into a wide-lipped container so you capture all the sprays. And I have ideas on wide-lipped container too. In another video, you will see hand massage and hand expression when a mom is full, engorged, has clogged ducts. We are also reminded that this technique is a free way to remove milk. This video shows a different technique of using a third finger to help remove the milk. It's helpful to try different ways until you find a method that works the best for you, which is why I like showing you several videos. You will also hear the author suggesting the use of olive oil as a comfort measure to massaging into your breasts if you're dealing with a clogged duct or engorgement. The last video you're going to see is with Melanie Schultz. Now, Melanie was a wonderful guest on the All About Breastfeeding show quite a while ago. She was such a pleasure to hang out with, as she has a wonderful sense of humor. At the time, she was newly pregnant with her second baby, and she had an 18-month-old daughter. During this interview, Melanie tells us the story of how she came to create the breast bowl, which is a glass bowl specifically designed for hand expression of breast milk. I have one that sits on the shelf in my office. It's a beautiful piece of art, which many moms I know have used it during a consult when I teach them how to hand express. Melanie now has 2 children and is the proud owner of her newest creation, the Lactobowl. This is a unique bowl for hand expression of breast milk, made from 100% food-safe silicone, which is non-toxic and BPA-free. I really like this option because it is easy to take with you on the go. You can learn more about Mel by listening to episode number 76, where she shares with us her story on how she came about developing the original glass breast bowl, what her motivation was, and what she did, and how she set about teaching herself how to make this product. It is always preferable to have a baby that is breastfeeding well, removing the milk. I often say that your breasts are the milk-making machine and your baby is the driver of this milk-making machine. A baby comes to the breast with a good deep latch and provides just the right amount of stimulation in just the right places, with just the right sucking rhythm and compression. But we all know that this is not always possible. Learning hand expression, and guess what? You will never have to worry about a lost or broken pump. You will never have to worry about becoming engorged if you miss a breastfeeding or a pumping session. You have all the power you need in your hands. All right, well, thanks for hanging out with me today, and don't forget to check the show notes out for the resources I discussed in today's show. Until the next show, bye-bye.
This is Lori Jill Isenstadt saying thank you for watching today's show. And if you like the show and want to make sure you don't miss another one, just press that subscribe button below. And also, anybody who knows me knows that my mantra is, don't let All About Breastfeeding be your best kept secret. Please like the button below and share this show with every pregnant and new mother that you know that may be interested in anything related to breastfeeding. You can also go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz, and there you will find lots more information about myself, the services that I provide, and you will also get the whole library, all free, of all the shows, the 120 guests that I've interviewed about all subjects related to breastfeeding. That's at allaboutbreastfeeding.biz. And the last thing is my gift to you. If you go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/7secrets, you will get my handout on the 7 secrets to breast pumping. See you on the next show.